You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Hello, awakening souls. It's been a little while. I hope you'll forgive me for being absent for a bit. I've found that my creativity, my desire to create, as much as it was there, I didn't have the emotional or mental, physical capacity to make it happen. And sometimes it's okay to take a break and say, I need to get myself, cleared up with my energy and feeling great so that I can present these amazing people and interviews to you in the best way possible. And welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I'd like to introduce you to Cyrina Bullard and Liz Rutledge, who are creators of the Winning Wellness Experience. And coming out of COVID, coming out of isolation, starting work again, starting the school year again, there are a lot of questions and insecurities and fears that can come along with this. So this duo of happiness experts and mindfulness experts has come together and created actually a whole group of wonderful people to teach you a program, to give you something that will allow you to transition into this next section of our lives with a wellness as your base. So I hope you'll take a few moments to learn about their incredible stories and figure out how winning wellness can work for you. And if you stick around to the end, we've got a special discount for listeners of Lighthouse Conversations. So enjoy, be well, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. And welcome to the show, Cyrina and Liz. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. It's a big day for you. You created this amazing Winning Wellness Experience together. It is now out into the world. I can't wait to hear more about how you two ended up working together to create this experience to help others with their journeys. But I want to hear from each of you individually. Both of your stories are amazing. Cyrina, I want to start with you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to be this happiness expert.
Well, I will say my entire life, I've always been a very happy person. And I did share in my stories about the fact that there were times when I experienced depression and this is so unlike me. And I'm like, what is happening? And I found out that my vitamin D level was low. And I was like, okay, and I'm a pharmacist, so I want people to know this. There could be certain things that are off balance in your body that you need to find what's actually causing these troubles and what's the fundamental thing going on with yourself. But so many times we just look for a quick fix and we don't get to the core. And I feel like, okay, that was one thing, like, okay, it's important to have happiness in your life because if not, life could be very challenging. Having that experience made me want to delve into it and learn more about catch happiness. And it's interesting because I've been a pharmacist for over 25 years and I've had 2 head injuries now and I can't practice pharmacy. But I was laying in bed and I was praying. I'm like, okay, God, what the heck am I supposed to do? What exactly am I supposed to do? And this idea, catch happiness, came to mind. I'm like, oh, I love it. So I get out of bed and I get catchhappiness.com for $38. And I thought, okay, that started my journey.
I love that. And so you had 3 major incidents in your life where you almost didn't make it. Can you talk me through what those were?
Sure. At age 11, I was struck by lightning, not your everyday thing that happens. And I grew up in Florida where lightning strikes are common, but my mom had to give me CPR to bring me back. So I feel very fortunate that I survived that. And then the second time I was in New Zealand and I was whitewater rafting off a 21-foot waterfall. Call me crazy, yes. But it was an amazing adventure. And I was the only one who fell off the boat. And there was a time when they weren't sure they were waiting for me to come out, and I luckily resurfaced. Mm-hmm. And then the third time, and hopefully the last brush with death was a bicycle accident in Vail. And thank God I had on my helmet, or I would not be here, because I was in a coma for 18 days, hospital 2.5 months, out of work for 9.5 months. But they told me that I was going to have somebody take care of me for the rest of my life. So I feel so blessed.
So blessed. Wow. Look at you. I mean, you would never know you've had come through all that you've come through. I find that incredible and so inspirational. So thanks for being here. And through all of this, you also wrote a book, Creating Conscious Connections. I want to hear about the book, but there's this amazing story of alignment that comes with this. Tell me a little bit about how this process showed you that you were on the right track.
Okay, so I'm getting, close to finishing my book, and they say, oh, you should have a website for your book. So I try to go on GoDaddy.com and get creatingconsciousconnections.com, and it was not available. So I thought, well, I'll have to get creative. And this is May of 2019. Well, then September 2019, I called one of my girlfriends who was moving to Bali, and I wanted to connect her with my friends there. And she said, oh, what have you been doing? I tell her I'm writing a book, and I tell her the title, and she's like, oh my God, I feel like there's angels around us right now. And I said, why do you say that? And she said, because literally 3 days ago, I rebranded. I'm now Sarah B. Fit, but I was creatingconsciousconnections.com.
What?
I get chills every time I hear that story. Every time I get those chill bumps.
Because that is spirit coming through. Those chill bumps that you're talking about, like when you get those sensations for me, I kind of feel them on the top of my back, like, oh, wow, okay, we are connected. These are just those beautiful signs that show up. That must have been very affirming for you, Cyrina.
Yeah, it was like a beacon because, it's scary. I financially have to take care of myself right now. And, being a pharmacist was a steady income, and having 2 head injuries and having to reinvent myself, I thought, okay. And that was like, okay, a beacon that you were on the right path.
Whew, and it goes to say, follow those instincts, trust yourself, because they come to you for a reason, these ideas. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, Liz, I want to get to you. You're a sustainability educator. You teach mindfulness as well for kids, which I'm super passionate about. I love that you're doing this. We should all do this. Everyone in society should do this. I want to hear about your journey to how you got here.
I'll try to keep it short. I just turned 50, and I've been basically thank you. I've been basically doing mindfulness since I was about 10, and think like my great grandmother was into the science of mind. My grandmother was born in 1904 and used to do yoga, and she would talk about thoughts being things and all the stuff. That's sort of law of attraction, but she didn't call it that. And then fast forward, got married, had 3 children. And when my oldest was 12, a brother of one of her friends who was 14 took his own life. And I guess I was naive. I just was so disturbed by that. I thought, how at 14, when you have your whole life ahead of you, do you even know how to do that? And I went to this school, and the short story is I ended up teaching mindfulness, just coming and voluntarily teaching mindfulness at the middle school, at my daughter's middle school. And because I wanted to make sure that kids today, especially if not adults, have these skills that I grew up with. Like, I grew up being told to go to my breath when I was in pain. And when I had my children, I used Lamaze, basically mindfulness breathing. And when I had a panic attack when I was 10, my dad taught me about following my breath. And I just wanted to share this. I was like, oh my gosh, not everybody learns this stuff, when they're growing up. And it just was kind of like Cyrina, it was a calling. And so I did it voluntarily for about 6 years for the middle school. And then started teaching at the local elementary school, and I would come into the classroom with my little singing bowl and get the cutest stories of these kids. I would always ask at the beginning of the session, how many of you used mindfulness this week? And they would say, well, I was, my sister hit me and I was going to punch her in the stomach, but I took a few mindful breaths and calmed down. And I'm like, okay, one at a time, maybe we can bring peace or something to the planet. And that same year, so that was 2014 when I started doing all that, I just realized like, oh my gosh, I've put 3 children in the world and our planet is in not good shape, And so the climate is clearly changing. And I just thought, what I think the thing is that people are overwhelmed by, they keep talking about climate change and how it's, it's this really horrible, bad thing looming over us, but they don't necessarily know what to do on a daily basis. And so in 2014, I started my website called sustainable3.com. And I started doing a blog and just doing like regular tips. And I would do like a 21-day challenge and just try to get people thinking about like picking up litter and recycling and composting and some of the things like choosing to bike if your destination is within 2 miles and that kind of thing. And just trying to give some reassurance to people that they do have some influence in the outcome of this whole adventure that we're on. And they can just do it through 3 little habits or 3 levels of depth of habits. So it's sustainable 3 because I have 3 kids and my logo looks like 3 little leaves or a wind propeller or whatever else. But also we're the 3rd planet from the sun, right? So just thinking about all that. And then, so at one point I was like, wait a minute, it's all mindfulness, like mindfulness about ourselves, breathing, finding calm, being kind to others, mindfulness about our community, composting, recycling, all those things, volunteering, finding ways to be involved. Like I was volunteering for the school, and mindfulness about our planet. So it's sort of evolved into all that. So now I call it mindful sustainability because it's all of those things, right?
Yes, it's so all of those things. It's the micro, it's the macro. It's also planting the seeds, if you will, in these children so that society shifts, culture shifts as more kids are raised with the things that many of us, and you're so very lucky that you didn't know about or have growing up. And these are things that, once they're ingrained in you, can make such a massive difference in terms of how you show up in society, in the world. I used to teach yoga and meditation to kids as well in New York City. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, how would life be different if my generation or the generation before my parents' generation had this? What would the outcome be? And so I guess we'll find out, because more and more people like each of you show up in your callings and are able to help others by your expertise and putting your heart into it. Because, you're making the world better than when you found it. So I commend the both of you for that. Absolutely.
Thank
so
you.
How did you two get together to work together to create the winning wellness experience?
Well, can I start?
Well, yeah, you start, Liz.
Well, I just was to liaise with what I was talking about, mindfulness about our community. Short story, my daughter, I thought she had tried pot, whatever, in high school. And I went to the internet to try to find out, like, how do you talk to your kid about marijuana? I had no clue. And the short story of that is a friend of mine and I talked about how you don't really learn those things unless you have to deal with it. And so we came up with this thing called the Angel Talks, which were like TED Talks at our kids' high school, where we would bring in experts on different topics like social media and consent, sexual consent and drugs and alcohol and your rights as a parent, right? And so we created this because the mascot for East High School is the Angel Talks. And I went to my friend who's in Toastmasters and I said, hey, we're looking for speakers. And she said, oh, hey, there's this woman in Toastmasters, Cyrina Bullard, and this guy, Keith Bailey, and they would be the great for your first talk. So we didn't want to depress everyone with having the first talk be about the heavy stuff. So we brought in a happiness expert and we met and talked about it. And we were at the beginning, it was a little rough, we had him in the cafeteria and then later we had him in the black box theater with good lighting and good video and all that stuff. But so then if you want to take it from there.
Yeah. Well, it was fascinating because it's funny because Keith and I are really good friends. And I said, I'm going to be speaking at East High School. And he said, oh, so am I. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we ended up being there together and we were speaking. I was like, this is wild. And then so I met obviously Liz and Bernie who were heading up the Angel Talks. And literally the next weekend, Liz, Bernie, and I were all in Breckenridge, Colorado. And I was like, what?
Coincidentally.
Another sign.
Yeah. And so we all get together with some friends and stuff for happy hour there. And I was like, what in the world? And we just connected and we felt like, okay. And we had so many things in alignment that when we started talking. We're like, we really should do something together. And one thing led to another. And here we are today. And I just felt like it's fascinating because we had this whole thing planned out every single month. We were given a live workshop and then COVID hit. We were so excited to be able to we had it all planned out. We had everything organized. And then we had to shift and pivot and figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And it was fascinating how we're like, okay, we're going to study, we're going to learn, we're going to evolve and grow. And we have been on a journey ever since.
It sounds like it. And it sounds like the pivot was the right pivot. I mean, COVID was devastating for so many people, their livelihoods, their jobs, me included, speaking, performing arts, everything just kind of was gone if it required people to gather. So how did the two of you, well, first of all, I'm curious what your initial reaction was to all this happening. And then what did you do to get on the same page in terms of how this was going to evolve?
Well, I think that happened pretty quickly. I mean, we had talks scheduled out every other week throughout the whole year of 2020. And I had finally got the school, they were going to actually start paying me to go in and do the mindfulness in the schools. And I had been going to a few classrooms. And one night I woke up in the middle of the night during the COVID, when it was dark, February, March timeframe. And I was like, oh gosh, the kids. Oh my gosh, the kids, they need these tools more than ever, and I'm not going to be there. So I started making videos. I started making YouTube videos, and I think I made 60 before I finally went, okay, just free videos. I just threw them out once a day, every day for 2 months. And somewhere in there is where Cyrina and I had a conversation about all these live events. We went, I think we should do an online course. And we had previously done a Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi course on how to create a course. And so we were like, okay. So we watched all those videos again and figured out what platform to use. And we had no idea what we were doing. And just like everyone else, super awkward on Zoom, right? So it started with filming ourselves doing PowerPoint presentations on Zoom. And we threw out a first draft, is what I would call it, of our courses. And then we just started working on marketing, and we didn't really get any sales. And then we finally were like, wait a minute, let's go through and watch the course. And we watched through it. And by then I had been making videos for the school every week, for the classroom. Just had set up a whole new thing when school started again. And I now have a green screen and lighting and a good camera and, the ring lights and the little light thing that reflects back at your face. And so we decided to up level the whole thing. And in watching all the classes, we were like, we could add this, we could do this. And we had this idea of partnering with other people to flush it out to be a truly immersive wellness experience. So in addition to the mindfulness I teach and the resiliency and happiness and visioning that Cyrina teaches, we have these 6 co-creators that are bringing mindful food, mindful eating, mindful fitness, mindfulness about your sleep. We have a lawyer talking about creating opportunities out of challenges, and an expert in the 9 environments of you. And we've brought them all together. I forgot somebody. Oh, and yoga. Yeah, yoga instructor. Amazing yoga instructor about teaching us about yoga is just Amy Ippoliti, and she's Ippoliti. Sorry. And I feel like we've created such a great course with these co-creators to be able to share this with people and let them know, hey, these are the tools for your toolbox to be able to make your life better.
Absolutely. And I love that you come at it from different perspectives, because we all receive information in different ways from different people, depending on how the energy connection of that person is, or what, one person can say one thing and another person says the exact same thing sometimes. And you'll hear one person and not another. So not only is it different people, it's different subjects, and it's very holistic, which I think is something that we in this society don't pay as much attention to, especially in the workplace or even at school. So you're introducing this probably to people who could really use it, and who maybe haven't had the opportunity to look at those areas before. Who would you say that this course is targeted to? Who would you? I'm sure everyone will benefit from this. I mean, you can, obviously, but is there someone that you're like, if you're at this point in life, I think this would be for you?
I think for sure, moms and dads, for sure, professionals who've been working from home and having to teach their kids who are doing remote school or are starting to go back or have gone back to work. So in one case, one of our potential clients, they've all been working remote for this year and a half. And after Labor Day, they're all going back to work. So like, we'd love to be able for them to have our course during the summer.
Oh, wow.
And then have all these resiliency and kindness and mindfulness tools. When they go back, they'll have a great 30-minute yoga practice they can do when they feel stressed and anxious. They'll have a nap practice that they can do when they just need to recharge their batteries and take a 15-minute nap. And so the hope would be that people buy it over the summer, do it, and then so they can prepare, especially kids. My daughter spent her whole freshman year remote and only went back to school at the very end of the year. And so she's anxious. She was doing half-day school to only 2.5 hours a day. Now she's going to be at school 8 hours a day with a bunch of people in the halls that she barely has been to see, because they never had the orientation last year.
Right.
That kind of thing. So it's not just for women, but we definitely, I think probably it'll appeal more to women, but it could definitely appeal to professional men, dads, people who want things to be better,
Yeah. Is this something that parents and kids can do together?
There are certain things, there are many things. It's interesting because the resiliency that I teach, I was inspired being a pharmacist dispensing anti-anxiety meds to 15, 16-year-olds because life's not going to get easier. So I was inspired to become trained in what's called heart math. And it's incredible resources for people. And if the family can do this together, I think it would be more cohesive for the entire family to be on the same level as far as like, okay, we're stressed right now. Let's take a few minutes and do this exercise to bring more calmness to our day and not be reactive, be more responsive to situations, because I feel like many times when you're exhausted, you're you're stressed out, you're running around from one thing to the next, that being present is hard to do, and you have to be conscientious of it.
Incredibly hard to do. I've heard of this heart math before. Is there any small exercise you can walk us through, or just like a quick overview, or something that could be of use in a pinch?
Sure, of course. I'd like to share the definition of resilience that they have for heart math. It's the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenges, or adversity. And I love the idea of preparing for something beforehand, because we all have those people or situations that push our buttons. And so if we know that we're having to go into a potentially challenging situation, we can prepare for that beforehand. And so what we can do is, if you want to just do a quick little exercise, we can do that. And I encourage people who are doing this for the first time to place their hand on their heart, okay? Because it's easier to focus on the area of the heart, okay? And if you want to close your eyes, you can if you're not driving or doing it machinery. And you can close your eyes, and we're going to focus our attention on the area of the heart. Imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. Breathing a little bit slower and deeper than usual. So in for 5 seconds and out for 5 seconds, or whatever rhythm is comfortable for you, okay? And I'll keep track of time. We'll do it for about a minute. Okay, that was just about a minute. Mm-hmm. But one thing I will say, you don't need to have your hand on your heart. You don't need to have your eyes closed. You can do this anywhere, anytime. And when you're starting to, we all have that like feeling like I'm getting irritated, I'm getting, frustrated, and just check in with your heart. The intelligence of the heart is incredible. And the science behind it, being in pharmacy school, I never learned about any of this. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating, and how the heart sends more signals to the brain than vice versa. And I find it fascinating because our messages from our heart can affect our cognition. It either can impair our brain function or facilitate more brain function and have more prefrontal cortex access. And I find it fascinating. So when we're getting stressed and we increase our cortisol levels, that decreases blood flow to our prefrontal cortex. But if we're able to check in with our bodies and bring some calmness, and like I said, you can have your hands on the steering wheel, your eyes open, and you're getting frustrated in traffic, just do those heart-focused breaths. You don't need...
So rather than slam your hand on the horn, just go back to your breath. And I would just like to add that Cyrina and I are both meditators, and we both meditate every morning. Mm-hmm. And every time we get together to work, which has been a lot lately, we meditate for 3 minutes and 33 seconds. And just center ground and get present before we go to work. And that's just a really good exercise, whether it's 3 minutes, 1 minute, a few breaths, especially. Yes. And that's one of the things we want to help people with, is especially with group work and departments and teams, to be able to help them have that, like, okay, guys, let's take a minute, a mindful minute.
I can absolutely attest to the power of that. I will do a meditation exercise before speaking engagement with the audience and get everybody, you kind of get in that same wavelength, that same rhythm, that same heart space, if you will. And I feel like the world would change if, before meetings in the conference room, let's just have a mindful minute together, or before family, discussions like this. Why don't we all make that part of our regular routine? So it's pretty great that you're putting that out there and spreading that message into the world, because it really does make a difference. It does. What I want to ask from each of you is, who or what has influenced you on your journey towards happiness, wellness, resilience, all of the above?
Well, I know who influenced me the most, and this is a woman called Louise Hay. And I feel so blessed that I was able to go to her 90th birthday in San Diego, because she didn't make it to 91. And I feel like she was such a blessing to our world. And, with having forgiveness and love and spreading that, and all the people she inspired that have brought wonderful things to our world, Louise Hay is who wants me to help bring more happiness to our world and peace.
Yeah, great. And I would second that. Louise Hay was a huge influence in my life. My grandmother, as I mentioned, was really big into like affirmations and all that stuff. And she was such a gift to the world. For me, I think there are many, but I think the one that sort of pushed me to help others was my yoga teacher, Tina Porter. The way she teaches, she just puts it all out there. So she tells you about when she lost it with her husband, or, whatever her challenges during the yoga practice. She would just put it out there, and she gave me the courage to go to the school and be like, hey, and I channel her occasionally when I'm in the classroom. And I just, I think that sometimes it is just like a person just being the example that can be the change, that can help guide us, I guess I would say. Yeah.
You're so right. And thank goodness for those. And that's you becoming that for others as well. It's like little lights getting lit up all over the world. One flame is lit, and that just everyone around them suddenly has the light, and then everyone around them suddenly has it. So it's great. This is how we make change. So you are right now, Winning Wellness Experience is available, and you have something to offer for listeners. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. So Liz will share with you what our great offer is.
Our Winning Wellness Experience, which includes the 5 classes, it's the happiness that Cyrina teaches, basics of mindfulness, just sort of definition, science, and then the resiliency that Cyrina teaches. And then I do a mindfulness journey of the senses. So we do mindful eating, mindful listening, mindful smelling, and that was tricky to figure out on video. And then Cyrina talks about visioning, a life of design rather than default. And then they also will get, if they buy the whole bundle, they get the 6 co-creators, so all the people I mentioned before. And that can be found at winningwellness.learnworlds.com. And if they go to that website, there is a deal, an offer that we're giving to anyone who wants to join early, $50 off the Winning Wellness Experience the whole collection if they put in the Be Well 50 promo code. So that's for your listeners to join in early and often, and hopefully complete the courses all before the end of the summer. And it'll expire on September 7th.
Yeah, and we're really excited because we want to create a ripple effect with this class. And like you said, your light can shine onto others and be this ripple effect, because I feel like we've all gone through very challenging times and we're trying to get back into a routine. But we had to hit the reset button, and hopefully we'll come back with more love, more support, and more mindfulness in our day. And I feel like we need to be conscious about this because it doesn't just happen. We have to put on our tool belt and the right mindset in the morning to allow this to spread, because, we all get irritated. We're all get frustrated, but we have to make the conscious effort to be understanding, spread happiness and kindness to people.
Such wise words to live by. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for being that light, both of you, Cyrina and Liz. I wanted to thank you for talking to me today about your journey and your amazing course that you have birthed into the world and have begun sharing. So I can't wait to see all of the wonderful ripple effects that come from this.
Thank you for having us
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.